Welcome back, everyone. This is Ampro Engineering here, and tonight we have something a little bit different. Oops, wait, I did it again. Sorry, no, that's not right. Let me think. I think it's over here. There we go. We are going to talk about the ORV chassis. I hesitate to say that the ORV line of cars, starting with the Lancia Rally and the Subaru Brat, developing into the Frog, and ultimately into the beloved Blackfoot Monster Beetle Mud Blaster. I hesitate to say that these cars had a flaw or two because they were riddled in just ridiculousness. And these are things, I'm not putting them down, these are things that make them so great today. I really enjoy the rear swing arm suspension that is kind of wayward when you're trying to make a simple turn. These are things that make the car endearing. There are other things that make the car unusable. And one of these things happens to be related to these swing arms. Okay, because the body's on this car, I'm going to show you on a different vehicle to illustrate my point. The suspension works by compressing this arm here. If I tilt it up a little bit, you can see that as you compress the suspension, the laydown shock is compressed. Okay, so the camber stays constant. You do have some rotation of the wheel like this, but it's quite minimal. There's a lot of real-life cars that had suspension exactly like this. But the problem with this rear suspension that I have discovered is that these mounts here are very, very weak. In particular, the mounting point here. So this mounting point here is, for me, the weakest part of this swing arm. Every single one of these vehicles that I own, including this one, let me clean that off a little bit more. There's right there, are split right across here. This one's in remarkably good shape, but as you'll see in a minute on the Subaru Brat that I have here with the Ford body, I actually, many moons ago, I had to grind this down a little bit, put some styrene on top of it, epoxy it, and kind of hold it together. The arms, now that they're available to re-releases, are readily available, which is great, but they still aren't free, and they constantly break. I remember I first bought when the Monster Beetle came out, I think about 2 sets of these arms. Over the course of a weekend, both of them split. I attribute this to two things. Number one, I threaded these screws directly into this. And I feel that maybe I over-tightened them and they split again. Secondly, it's a little bit hard to see here, but these shocks obviously are aftermarket, and they have a ball at the end of this here, at the end of the shock shaft. And what the ball allows the shock to do is kind of pivot. However, with this particular suspension design, I'm going to try and tilt this so you can see it a little bit. It's really not too noticeable on this particular guy because, again, he's not been too beat up over his life. But this top mount is bowing. It's bowing downward like this because the stock shock absorber does not allow for any kind of rotation in this pivot here, so it helps keep it stiff. So my proposed solution is this guy here. This is a brace that is installed right here. Okay, I'll put it right there. And what the brace does is it will completely encapsulate the broken end here. This region here is tapered, as well as the lower region here. Now this lower region picks up this mount right here. If anybody out there knows what this mount here is used for, I'd love to hear. I've never come across any particular use for it. So basically this really long piece of through-hole plastic here, which is I think about 14 millimeters long, is completely unused. With this brace, you install it right here. You screw put a screw through here, thread it into the lower piece, and at the top, depending on the condition of this, I have a couple of cars where I just self-tapped right into this and it was not a problem at all. I have also a couple of cars where the top was completely split. I glued it back together, drilled the hole out considerably larger, and I have some photographs of these. Unfortunately, none of my ORV cars here are here right now, so I can't really show those off, but I have some photographs. I drilled straight through this here to enlarge the hole. I put a machine screw in and just threaded it into a nut on the other end and torqued it down nice and stiff. And that did a couple things. Number one, it encapsulated this broken region up here. Number two, on my Monster Beetle, I actually had one of these arms that was split down here. And the car had to go, actually to where it is right now, and my only spare arm was horribly twisted up here. I have a photograph of that I'll show as well. This brace here, when I installed it, straightened it out completely and made that warped area there unnoticeable. So let's take a look at this installed so you can see how it fits into the car. I did want to take a look at it for a moment. This is made out of 3D printed stainless steel. The way this works is the printer lays down a very, very fine powder of stainless steel. The stainless steel is glued together. When the entire piece is completed, it is placed into the oven and baked. The glue burns off and the stainless steel bonds at a molecular level. This gives you a very dense and very durable part. These things, they weigh way more than you would imagine they do. So these are very, very dense little pieces. They are rock hard and incredibly durable. I also wanted to point out in here, in this little region here, this is tapered as I mentioned earlier. This is basically an interference fit to the region on the A-arm right here. These are not going to just drop on and you're done. You're going to have to, on this piece here, sand it down just a tiny bit. I did this on purpose because these need to be pressed on as tightly as possible to prevent this area here from expanding when you thread the screw in and ultimately cracking this or further cracking the top mount as well. So I've designed these to be very, very tight. Let me show you now how these look installed, and you can see what kind of interference they pose to the workings of the vehicle. All right, this is the brace installed on the Brat. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that the brace in no way exceeds the overall bound of that bracket on the swing arm. This means that at an angle here, it's going to be a little bit tough to see. I'm going to try and do as much as I possibly can. The brace never comes into contact with the motor. Okay, it is always completely free and clear. It never comes into contact with the chassis, and it comes close, but you know, I'm working within a small bound. Ultimately, it never comes into contact, and it requires no modification other than to the swing arms, which are probably broken already. Secondly, from above, I also wanted to point out that the deflection or the bending of the upper mount on the swing arm is drastically minimized because this brace not only reinforces the top of the swing arm, but also prevents it from twisting and distorting the arm. So this is going to allow you to install a higher quality rear spring or rear shock absorber without compromising the mount. So this is going to save not only your broken suspension arms, it's also going to allow your new suspension arms to stay solid and not break for many, many years to come. I've got some images now. I'd like to kind of walk through the images. So this is the Brat. I put that piece of styrene there to help hold the top of the swing arm together. Here I've broken it off and ground it down. You can see there's two splits. That whole section had actually broken off of the arm. I went ahead and pressed the brace directly over it, and in this example I have a machined M3 screw coming through the arm with a nut at the end because the hole was too stripped out. In this example, I had an arm that was heavily warped. In fact, I thought it was completely unusable. So what I did is, again, I ground down the edges just a little bit, test fit the brace over the arm, and it might take a couple of attempts. Once you've gotten it down to seat, I went ahead and just screwed it in place. Because those cups inside of the brace grasp over the cone on the swing arm, as you torque it down, it actually decreases the diameter of the plastic hole and gives it a really nice fitment. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video This part was something that I worked on quite some time because it took a lot of trial and error to get the press fit to be, you know, as close as I possibly could get to the wide range of ORV cars I had. You know, some of the A-arms just have different tolerances, so it was a little tough to make sure that these would fit all of them without being exceedingly difficult to make these fit. Again, take your time sanding down the bosses on the swing arm, and once you've gotten this thing to kind of almost get down onto the horizontal brace that kind of will butt up with this, you've done it properly. Cinch it down, and you are never going to break that upper mount ever again. Please subscribe. I've got a lot of videos coming up. You can also add me on Instagram and Facebook at MPro Engineering. At the end of this video, you will find a link to my Shapeways page where you can purchase these. And I did want to mention that these must be purchased in a quantity of 2. A quantity of 1 will just give you the one piece. Normally when I sell a set, I have them connected, but with this stainless steel, any extra stainless steel, like let's say I had them attached with a sprue or something, that would increase the price quite significantly. So, you know, to keep the price down, just, you know, make it a quantity of 2, and you will get both of these. There is no left and right. They're the exact same for both sides. I do want to shout out again to Blue Pinto for allowing me to use all of their songs in my videos. A link to their Facebook page is also at the end of this video. Thank you all again for watching, and I will see you next time.